There's anger on the streets in the Philippines. A corruption scandal over flood control projects has rocked the country. Protesters are calling for the president to resign. Can Marcos Jr. survive the fury? I'm Hazem Sika, and today's newsmaker is the Philippines. Billions of dollars had been set aside for flood control projects in a country that has seen far too many of them. Powerful politicians, including allies of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., are accused of lining their own pockets with the money. Marcos Jr. has promised to go after those responsible, but many Filipinos say the president is part of the problem. Tens of thousands of people filled the streets of the Philippine capital, Manila, on Sunday, demanding his resignation.
Manila is not just protesting corruption, it's questioning power. Across the Philippines, tens of thousands are demanding answers after investigators uncovered billions of pesos meant for flood control projects that were paid out but never built, even as deadly storms hit the country. Auditors estimate that between 2023 and 25, up to 118.5 billion pesos, roughly $2 billion a year, was siphoned away through rigged contracts and kickbacks.
It's clear that corruption runs from the bottom to the top. The problem is systemic. Filipinos need to unite to stop this system of corrupt dynasties. We are here to assert that the corruption is too much and must stop.
Those allegations are now being examined in Congress, the focus now squarely on the man at the top.
Before Christmas, the cases of these shameless people who steal the people's money will be completed. They won't have a Merry Christmas. They will be jailed.
The fallout has begun. 2 ministers have resigned, including the budget chief. And the president's cousin, House Speaker Martin Romualdez, has stepped aside. Authorities say 12 billion pesos in suspect assets have been frozen, with 7 officials already behind bars, signs of a government under growing strain. And that strain is now reaching beyond government offices and into the country's political power base. The influential religious bloc Iglesia Ni Cristo, nearly 3 million strong and known for bloc voting, helped sweep Marcos to power in 2022. Now, angered by what it calls a lack of transparency in the corruption probe, the INC has stepped away from Marcos and repositioned behind Vice President Sara Duterte, his former ally turned rival, who has since intensified her public criticism of the president.
Clear answers on how
the president now faces a profound crisis of confidence, especially in the way these corruption investigations are being handled, which appear to lack both direction and resolve. We also see clear answers on how a budget that deprived Filipinos of billions and billions of pesos was approved under his watch. I'm one with the millions of Filipinos who are disappointed by the government. Our right to speak and express is the backbone of democracy. The government must listen to this. We Filipinos deserve better.
What started as a corruption scandal over missing flood money has become a battle for the country's political future. And for Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the challenge now comes from both ends, a former ally closing ranks above, and an angry public closing in below.
Well, joining me now from Quezon City in the Philippines, assistant professor at the University of the Philippines College of Law, Paolo Tamase. From Manila, we have political analyst and president of the Political Economic Elemental Researchers and Strategists, Edmund Tayao. And also from the country's capital, political science professor at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Aries Arugay. Thank you very much for being with us, gentlemen. Paolo, if I could start with you, just give us a sense of how bad this is, how vast these allegations of corruption go, and what's at stake here for the Philippines.
I think if you look at the larger history of the Philippines, corruption scandals, and they come in every few years, this one is unprecedented in both the amount that's involved and just the number of officials and private co-conspirators that are involved in the corruption mess. And I think it shows a failure of a lot of accountability institutions, ranging from the courts all the way to agencies that are responsible for this, and a lot of that really at stake as to the effectiveness of whether anti-corruption laws and institutions can ever work in the country.
Edmund Tayao, what's your view on how President Marcos Jr. has been handling this? I mean, in public, he seems to be saying all the right things. We're going to fully investigate this. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. No one's going to be spared, and so on. But that doesn't seem to be enough for many Filipinos.
Well, if you're going to ask those who's really wanting him to resign, then that's really not enough. But if we are going to ask, and we have lawyers, one of the guests, we know how much time and what's the process, no, it takes, no, before someone is held accountable. And as already mentioned, the institutions that supposed to matter as far as these issues are concerned seem to be not working. And I couldn't agree more that the recent scandal, no, is seen as unprecedented because it's the only time that it is admitted to be actually happening. No, but the whole investigation has been suggesting that it has been going on for many administrations already. So this is really something that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, isn't it? That this is something that goes well before Marcos's administration. Aries Arugay, it gets the question of how much responsibility does he have to take here, because it goes beyond him, but he at the moment is the man at the top. The buck stops with him.
Yes, that's right. If we're talking about command responsibility, the fiscal spending and how the budget is implemented is under the executive. But let's remember, he is the one who blew the whistle on this corruption scandal. And the hypothetical is that if he did not make those shame on you, quote unquote, remarks during the State of the Nation address, then maybe we won't know about the extent of this corruption that is indeed unprecedented. So, in a way, the president seemed to be exasperated as some of members of Philippine society. But given the available information, there's only one, if not very few people that have directly implicated him in the scandal thus far. But as I would say, we're still, I think, at the tip of the iceberg of this corruption mess. And if we see more information that might directly implicate him, members of his family, as well as others, then it should not just be about command responsibility, but direct accountability as well.
Paolo Tamase, how much of a knock-on effect is this having on the Philippine economy in all areas, not just directly in terms of money that was set aside that wasn't spent, but also in the macro view, what this is doing for foreign investor confidence and so on?
Well, we really can't underestimate the role of government spending in the Philippine economy. It's a huge driver, especially coming after the pandemic. And I think you can actually make the argument that the reason why this flood control scandal grew is because of a real push for more infrastructure in the last administration, which allowed us to be very loose with a lot of our budget requirements. But on the investment side, you start really to see, and reports are coming in both officially and from anecdotally from within the profession, of how foreign investors are being turned off by all of this. We are set to miss our growth target for this year by 0.5%, which was already adjusted as it is. And just a few days ago, our stock market reached the lowest point in probably a decade. So there's certainly an effect on the Philippine economy at a time when a lot of people are suffering from unprecedented natural calamities as well, which are really impacted by the flood control issue.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more of that with Edmund. How much of an effect is this having on people on the ground, those who have suffered greatly because of the floods, and the investment just isn't there right now, whether it's for flood control, prevention, or rebuilding, and so on?
Well, it's actually a mixed reaction, I have to say. No, of course, if we're talking about the foreign direct investment or new investments coming in, this is much of a standstill, no, so to speak, precisely because the reaction of the international community has really been negative. But if we are looking at how inflation is reflecting the scandals, I'm inclined to think the easiest measure is the pump price of oil, and we've even experienced the Iran war, and it did not hit the 60 pesos per liter rate, no, unlike in 2019 when the per liter price made it higher than 70 pesos. No, so in terms of inflation, I think we're able to manage it. But in terms of was this expanding the economy, that's the one that's most affected.
Aries Arugay, the president has promised that there will be arrests over these corruption allegations by Christmas. How is that a realistic timetable at this point? How likely is that? And if that does happen, where do things go from there?
Right. I think this promise needs to be taken very seriously by the administration and should not renege on this promise. But not only people getting arrested, but really what we call here in the Philippines the big fish, because so far arrests have been made, but they're the small fry, the ones that at the bottom of the totem pole. I think in terms of impact, the Marcos Jr. administration must see to it that before the year ends, it's actually able to make good on its promise to at least hold these people accountable through arrest. There's some attempts at, there are already some initiatives at restitution, but a couple of 100 million pesos, we're talking about that. But I think if this year ends without the major players or the major actors being implicated in the scandal, there are no charges being filed, then it would speak really negatively about the ability of the Marcos Jr. administration to hold on and make good on its promise.
Paolo Tamase, if we look at the vice president for a moment, Sara Duterte, the daughter of Rodrigo Duterte, the former president who is now in The Hague on war crimes charges, they were part of the same ticket when in the election victory, but they have since parted ways politically, and she has wasted no time in seemingly getting political advantage out of this. Is this scandal a gift to her career and her future ambitions?
In a way, it is. The year began really not so well for the vice president because she was subject to quite a rare impeachment in the Philippine Congress. She basically got off because the Supreme Court has nullified that impeachment. But the scandal notably was also a corruption scandal on her part. There was a misuse of confidential intelligence funds allegedly against her. But the amount that was alleged to have been stolen by her or misused by her is nowhere near the total amount that's involved in the flood control mess. And so, in a way, it's a gift to her. But at the same time, it also, I think, covers up for the fact that many of the flood control issues began in the last administration. just with how budgeting collapsed as a process, and how government accountability was really replaced by a larger impunity. So that may well come back to haunt her at some point, and I'm sure Iris would have his own views on how this will work out for her. But so far, she's not, she's getting away from the mess that the flood control issue created. She's not one of the people who are implicated in the projects that are being investigated now.
Edmund Tayao, what do you think this means for the vice president? Because there are many Filipinos out there who say that she's also part of the problem. It isn't just one president or one administration. It's the entire political class.
Well, let me take off from the reply earlier. No, it would seem that by direct implication, there's nothing that shows as far as the vice president is concerned. But all those already implicated, particularly the big contractors who've been invited in the Senate for public hearing, no, they've all traced, no, that they became big as contractors, no, during the time of the previous administration. So, in other words, by implication, it would appear that the Duterte administration started, or much of all this mess started during the past administration, or at the very least, they became bigger, no, during the past administration. Actually, that's one of the reasons why many seem to be hesitant, no, to support the vice president's taking over the presidency. There's been continuing calls for the president to resign. But these continuing calls for resignation actually come from the same group. If you are going to ask those who are really wanting and watching, no, how the whole investigation is proceeding, it would seem that they're kind of lukewarm, no, to again resort to extra constitutional means to unseat, no, a legitimate president, no, with the vice president. We've done this twice already, also for the same reason of abuse of position and corruption, but we've never really had any real change. And here comes the Dutertes, trying to tell everyone that, hey, they are the ones who are going to bring about change. But we've had the older Duterte already in the previous administration, and here comes this particular mess, still also suggesting that that it started, no, during their watch. So, in other words, this really is a failure of the whole government. No, it's a systemic issue, and it's not just limited. Could not just be limited to particular individuals. At the very least, no, I'm inclined to think, no, that while there's command responsibility as far as the incumbent president is concerned, if not for his boldness, no, in declaring to everyone, to the whole country, that there is this huge mess that's ongoing, we would not even have any opportunity to look into all this mess closely.
I want to talk a little bit about one of the groups that's been involved in the protests, and that is the Iglesia Ni Cristo, Church of Christ, or INC as it's known. It's a religious group, but they are very politically active, and they got behind Marcos Jr. when he ran for president. Many say that was a big reason why he won, but they've now turned against him in these protests because of these corruption allegations. How much of a factor are they in all of this? They haven't called for his resignation specifically, but they are rallying against his administration. I'll put that to you, Aries Arugay.
Yes, I think the power of the Iglesia Ni Cristo, or INC, stems from their very coherent and consistent ability to mobilize. And this has something to do with the coherence of the church. and the very strict implementation of protocols by its leadership. While they remain the minority, very small minority compared to other religious affiliations like Catholics and other Protestant denominations, one cannot discount that they steadily built their political power by being able to deliver votes for specific candidates. Of course, they will not admit this, but one can only observe the long queues of politicians that would line up and get to the church's leadership to ask for this endorsement. So far, I think the INC has remained a bit more conservative rather than radical in terms of its demands, with very few exceptions, like allowing the sister of the president to make those remarks about the president's alleged drug use. The discipline of the messaging remains clear that they are for accountability, but let's remember that this church endorsed not only Marcos Jr. but Sara Duterte as well. So, in terms of accountability, I think uh, uh, the two other guests mentioned the systemic nature of this. There's also something to do with accountability of the electorate in being able to choose the right leaders, because this corruption scandal would not have been made possible if Filipinos were voting in accordance to proper, appropriate, and correct leadership rather than political dynasties.
Paolo Tamase, how do you see this playing out then? I mean, Marcos Jr. has until 2028 until his presidency ends. They're only allowed one term. If the longer it goes on, if it doesn't sink his presidency, it's certainly going to taint his legacy, isn't it?
Definitely. If you look at the main opposition against Marcos when he ran in 2022, one of the things that his opposition always raised was how he would continue the legacy of his father, who is really criticized to be this huge plunderer in the 1970s and 80s. And so President Marcos now, if under our current constitution, would not be able to run for another term. Our presidents have a single 6-year term. And so if he's concerned with legacy building in this lame duck period of his presidency, then he has every incentive to actually try to be the one to solve what we've all agreed with is basically a systemic problem. Of course, that will not happen. That systemic solution doesn't come from a single person. It has to be addressed from a whole of government approach and even from on the side of the electorate. But there are certainly a lot of opportunities on the part of the president to make the investigations a success. So supporting the work of the constitutionally independent ombudsman, providing the courts with the necessary support to handle the thousands of cases that are expected to be filed, keeping up the pressure through an independent commission to investigate this. Many things can be done in the remaining period. The question is whether he would just simply try to ride out the remainder of his term, or if he's going to try to build a legacy out of this corruption scandal.
Edmund Tayao, how do you see this playing out then? Is there still a lot of momentum in these protests?
Well, so far, the protests didn't really amount to anything, and the numbers have been consistently dwindling. So I'm inclined to think that there is this fatigue that's already happening, no? And again, if I may emphasize, we've had already 2 instances of extra constitutional initiatives to unseat a president. And I've been emphasizing that this is systemic because even if we say that the people should be choosing better, and in fact they showed that they can choose better in the past, just the recent midterm election, no? We were most of the surveys before the election suggest that all those previous was this worn out actors were about to win the election, no? But by some miracle, no, suddenly they didn't make it. So that's a good indication that people are in fact making the right choice, albeit we can say it's a Johnny-come-lately kind of realization, but it's also because there's not much of a choice. I mean, our system allows just anyone who has money and popularity to run for office. It's kind of, I don't know how unique it is as far as the Philippines is concerned, but in other countries, even if you're a son or daughter or related to a sitting president or a previous president, you still have to go through the same political and party process before you can be nominated and therefore run for office. In this part of the world, once you've earned some name and you have the money and you're bored, come morning that you wake up and you can just suddenly decide to run for office because simply you don't have anything to do. And this is the kind of political leaders that we find ourselves having to live with, no? Until such time that we change that kind of arrangement, then we will always have this this kind of problem.
All right, on that, we're going to have to leave it. Thank you to all three of you, Paolo Tamase, Edmund Tayao, and Aries Arugay. Thanks very much for being with us. And thank you for watching. Remember, you can follow us on social media and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Hazem Sika. We'll see you next time.